Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob.
And I'm Professor Sheri.
And together we are
the Traveling Professors.
Today we're going to take a walking tour of Dinosaur Ridge, Colorado. But we have a new professor who's going to be our guide, and that is Little Professor Emma. So it's Professor Bob, Professor Sheri, and Little Professor Emma. So let's get started with our walk through Dinosaur Ridge. I want to give you the historical background to Dinosaur Ridge, so we'll look at this picture of the hogback that is central to the Dinosaur Ridge complex. Now this is a segment of the Dakota hogback that's in the Morrison Fossil Area National Natural Landmark, which is in Jefferson County, Colorado, near the town of Morrison, and it's just west of Denver. Now, Dinosaur Ridge is one of the world's most famous dinosaur fossil localities. In 1887, fossil excavations began at Dinosaur Ridge under the direction of none other than paleontologist Othniel Marsh, the foremost American paleontologist. And of course, Marsh is going to be the one involved in the Cope-Marsh dinosaur war over who has the right head on the Brontosaurus. Some of the best-known dinosaurs were found here, including Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, and Allosaurus. In 1973, the area was recognized for its uniqueness as well as its historical and scientific significance, and it was designated the Morrison Fossil Area National Natural Landmark by the National Park Service. The rocks on the west side of Dinosaur Ridge are part of the widespread Morrison Formation of the Jurassic Age. It is in these rocks where Arthur Lakes discovered the dinosaur bones in 1877. 15 quarries were opened along the Dakota hogback in the Morrison area searching for fossils. The rocks on the east side of Dinosaur Ridge are part of the Cretaceous Dakota Formation. When the Alameda Parkway was being constructed in 1937 to provide access to Red Rocks Park, workers discovered hundreds of fossil dinosaur footprints. These were found to include iguanodon-like footprints, perhaps from Elambia. And also carnivorous theropod tracks are also present. So there is an exhibition hall here, there is a display area, there is a discovery area. So there's quite a lot to see. It's also free. Now if you want to take a 45-minute guided tour in a minibus, that will cost you, but otherwise it is free. So you can see on one side in this picture the visitor center. And that's where we came in, and we'll park up from the visitor center, and then you will walk uphill to one side, fossils on both sides. It's easier to drive all the way around to the other side and go up, because otherwise it's a long walk back and forth. We actually started where the little red box is. You are here. And you can see it's quite a walk from that spot to the first major set of fossils, which is the Crocodile Creek section. It's a little steep on this side. And remember, you're more than a mile up in altitude. We've been there for 3 or 4 days, and it was still a little bit tiring. And it was also, it takes you a little while to get into the fossils, which are right there up and around the tip and down the other side. So what we'll end up doing is we'll end up going just beyond the set of fossils that are marked on this map, and then we'll walk back down and get in the car. And it looks like you could just drive around the hogback. You can't. It's about a 20-minute drive to get into the little town nearby and then go underneath the interstate and then come back up to a parking area. But the other side is not as steep and is an easier walk up. Here's our view as we're getting ready to walk up. So let's get started and head towards the crocodiles. Dinosaur Ridge has these spectacular signs everywhere. They'll talk about the ecology, they'll talk about the geology, the change in terrain, and they, of course, whenever they have fossils, they'll have something like this. So here's the Crocodile Creek version. The most abundant predator tracks in these 100-million-year-old layers were not made by dinosaurs, but by crocodiles. Migrating hadrosaurs, which are duck-billed dinosaurs, had to be careful crossing the many streams and rivers that emptied into this seaway. The spot was a shallow tidal canal with sloping edges and hosted lots of patient crocodiles looking for dinner. And then here we have pictures of the area. You'll notice the pylons, and those are in place to steady the rock so that it doesn't slide out. And you'll see the layers. And it's hard to believe that this is up on the side of a hill or a mountain, because it was flat initially. So when you have the creation of the Rocky Mountains, these are all folded up. You can't climb on these. You're also not supposed to do any collecting. But here are some of the various shots of this particular area on Crocodile Creek. And then here are two of them which show ripple marks in the soil that have been preserved. And then part of that area, which was part of the crocodile zone, they have this section called the Dinosaur Courtship, where it appears that the dinosaurs acted like birds doing courtship dances. And you have this set of fossils where you have all of these overlapping steps. It's the only section that they found at the site here at Dinosaur Ridge. And here's another set of the ripple marks. The moving water left behind ripples in the sand on a flat beach nearly 100 million years ago. These sedimentary structures are not fossils, but serve as a remnant of waves washing along the shoreline. What happens is some sections of the beach, like this spot, were blanketed with microbial mats. The waves ripped at the sun-dried algae, exposing the sand underneath in spots, making a perfect condition to form patchwork ripples. So here we have some of those examples that you can see those ripples. On our map, here is where we are located, and this is where the major fossilized footprints are found. The footprint section comes from this trampled down tidal flat. Now, the fluctuating sea levels and large coastal storms deposited alternating layers of organic sand and mud over these once flat beaches. Tromping through were dozens of dinosaurs of different types, their feet squishing deep into the buried mud-covered sand, and left behind underprints, a secondary impression made beneath the natural track layer. Millions of years of uplift and erosion, and lastly road construction in 1936-37, revealed the layers covered in underprints for the world to see. Well, it's time for little Professor Emma to take over. This is her favorite spot. So she was showing us all the different types of footprints here and talking about what she had done with other people. I think this was the fourth time that she'd been there with her family and friends and relatives, so she knew what she was interested in. This set of tracks is rated number 1 in the nation by paleontologists. The common track maker here is a type of hadrosaur duck-billed dinosaur. These elephant-sized animals weighed around 3 tons and stretched 25 feet long. Their tracks are identified by 3 rounded toes with feet as wide as they are long. There are also several trackways of ostrich-sized and shaped omnivore dinosaurs that are scattered across the track site. They're called arachnids, meaning bird mimic. These smaller tracks are identified by 3 splayed, bird-like, pointed, and narrow toes. And then we have footprints of 6-foot-long crocodiles can be seen slightly lower layer than the dinosaur tracks exposed by the road construction. Here's little Professor Emma showing Elmo the tracks of the hadrosaur. And then here's how they have this area set up for viewing. They've got different markers. They've got different locations where you can sit and rest a little bit. You can climb up and see it at a little better distance. Often some of the areas there's been some erosion, so they have put some material around it to keep it from sliding anymore. And here we have Professor Bob and little Professor Emma. We have to have that picture. And then here's a view up the face of the rock. And you can just see all of these. And it is crazy, the angle that this is up. You're going like, what are they climbing up? No, it's that folding, that pushing up of the Earth's surface. And you can see here some more of those hadrosaur footprints, which are pretty obvious. And then here's one where you have the Brontosaurus footprints included in the group. So there's all sorts of animals walking across here. Again, looking up all the way to the top. Now I climbed up on the vantage point as high as I could go, and then I'm going to pan so you can see the whole expanse of the footprints from the top to the bottom. See if you can pick out which dinosaurs have been walking by. Here's a chart showing all of the footprints in the various areas. To ichthyologists, scientists who study trace fossils, track sites like this, one offers a chance to study more than just the number of toes and foot shapes of these ancient animals. The skinny-toed carnivores have a greater distance between the tracks for their size, suggesting they moved at a faster clip than the larger, slower herbivores. The herbivore tracks are mixed, large and small in size, indicating social and possibly parenting behavior. And there's not just dinosaur bones here, or dinosaur footprints as well. You have these trace fossils, and the Dakota sandstone contains lots of trace fossils. which are impressions, burrows, and other evidence of animal and plant activity. Dinosaur tracks are one kind of trace fossil. The burrows and feeding traces that you see here are another kind. While body fossils, bones, shells are rarely found in the Dakota group, trace fossils preserved here provide clues about the type of animals and plants that lived in the shallow marine environment. The horizontal and vertical burrows are similar to worm and crustacean trails and burrows in modern-day beach shores. And then here we have a closer view that you can kind of see if you can find some of those fossils in there. I would point out that depending on what time of the day you're here, we were here right at noon, the sun directly over the top of us. When it comes in from different angles, you can see some of the material much better. Going back to our map once again, here is where we stopped. And then here is the view of where we were still headed. There was quite a bit of a distance to go up to make that turning point, and then we'd have to go down and then back up. So we decided that we would go back down to the car and drive around at this point. Coming back down the hill, you can see that there are two establishments of some sort. This first slide is definitely the visitor center. But this other one, which could be a private property where they just allow you to park or whatever, is also there and appears to be doing something in association with Dinosaur Ridge. And the Discovery Center is on the other side. So let's head to the other side. Well, we went around the hogback, worked our way through the little town and underneath the highway, and then we pulled up to the parking spot, which you'll see right here. And you notice the distance from our parking spot to the top of the hill is about the same as it would have been if we'd have been on the other side going up, but we wouldn't see anything. So I think if you're going to do this, it might be better to start here, go up the hill, and then when you see the other items, it's all downhill. Of course, hopefully somebody will drive around, which is one of the reasons probably why people don't mind paying to take a tour in the bus, because that way you don't have to worry about that. But here is our view looking up the hill, which was actually a very much more gradual. Now the three things that we're looking for on this side are what are known as the bone bed. The other one are the Bronto prints and the Velociraptor footprints. But this whole side over here has some spectacular geological colors in it. All sorts of, there's yellows and golds and reds and all sorts of colors. It's really, really beautiful geologically as well as for the fossil part. Burying bones. Meandering stream tumbled dinosaur skeletons into pieces and then buried them here in this sandy bank formation on the side of the hill. Imagine every documentary you've ever seen on the grassy plains of Africa and know that the late Jurassic Colorado area looked similar, except without grasses. The area was an expansive floodplain, striped with braided and meandering streams. As the dry season ended and the wet began, the rivers would fill with water and flow quickly. They would pick up sand, mud, and bones and deposit them where the rivers slowed down, such as on a bend or against a sandbar. This is how the bones were deposited here and subsequently buried 150 million years ago. And then here are some of the examples that have been colored a little bit so you can see the bone fragments, but they're literally all over these pictures on this particular section. Next we find what is called a Pteropod Track. Now, this was first noted by Matt Mossbrooker and later described by Dr. Martin Lockley. This theropod, or carnivorous dinosaur, track was part of a top layer of sandstone of the bone site 50 yards to the north. During the road construction in 1937, this boulder was removed from the hillside and later moved to this location in 2013. And it shows the sharp toe impression of a theropod. Since they found Allosaurus teeth and bones near here in 1877, it could be a young Allosaurus, but there are other possibilities. Now we come to one of my favorites of the area, and that is the Brontosaurus Bulges, or basically their footprints, and then when they pull them out it makes a sucking motion and that gets preserved. I've seen these in South Dakota at the mammoth site that they have. You can see the footprints and how when they tried to get out of the mud they would come up and leave an impression. At any rate, that 50 million years ago, before the dinosaurs at Dinosaur Ridge's main track site squished through the beach and the smelly mud, Colorado was a vast floodplain, spiderwebbed with rivers and dotted with ponds. when these rivers flooded during the rainy season of Colorado's late Jurassic period, they would overflow into these ponds where the dinosaurs of all shapes and sizes would step down into the mud and get a drink. And here is the sucking motions that you can see. This is one. They're a little hard to see initially till you back away. And then this one, you can see one of them is right here and the other one is over here. And they have these devices to support the ceiling. Here's a closer view of one of the suctions. And you can see how this shot away from it shows how they're keeping this from collapsing. When we were looking through this, it was kind of like, well, I hope we don't have a little tremor here and we'll all end up as a fossil. But those are bulges from the foot of the Brontosaurus stepping down in the mud and then pulling it back out, and it preserved it. And we come to our last fossil, the rare Raptor track, which is the first Raptor track found in Colorado. And it's really hard to see. We looked and looked and looked, and then little Professor Emma told us that it was inside the red ring that's on the wall. So then I got a little closer shot of it, but the lighting was a little troublesome, and you can't quite make it out as well as it is on the guide piece. The Raptor track was our last fossil. Now it's time to turn around and go back to the car and head home. But first, I went about 20 feet up to where the road peaks and took a shot on both sides. So here's the one side, which has the beautiful red rocks, and then here's the Red Rock Stadium and I went around on the other side and took a video of the view over I-70 looking out on the plains, but you do see some of the excavations and quarries on the other side as well. The problem with taking video on that side was the noise from here's the view walking back down to our car. And when I got down to the car, I turned to Emma and I said, Emma, what do you think about our trip to Dinosaur Ridge? And here's her answer. Thank you. Sheri and I and Emma hope you enjoyed our trip to Dinosaur Ridge. And I would point out that Emma does not call me Grandpa. She calls me Bob. That's what she was saying there at the end. So I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much. Sheri and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Please come by our YouTube channel at Bob Packett, and please subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you very much.